All right, well, welcome back. This is going to be the second recipe in the fresh milled flour course. I wanted to make it just a tiny bit more difficult than muffins. Muffins are so easy. You don't have to think about the texture of the dough because it's a batter, and there's no kind of calculating and deciding whether you need to add a little bit more milk or a little less. With scones, which are kind of like biscuit dough, but a little sweeter usually, or they have add-ins and things in them. With a scone, what you do is make like a biscuit-like dough, and then you shape it into a circle, cut it into 8 little rectangles, and most times you want to use a soft wheat or einkorn. I'm using einkorn today, and I'll talk about that more in just a minute, about why it matters, which one you're going to use. But this type of recipe kind of eases you into paying attention to the texture of a dough. So like with the muffins, you really, even if yours was thinner than mine or thicker than mine, you're still going to get a fine muffin. But like with doughs, it becomes more of a feel. And so I will go into that as we're making the dough to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Keep in mind that different pumpkin purees are different textures. Like some are runnier than others. So keep that in mind as you're going along in the recipe. So preheat your oven to 425 degrees, and then we're going to meal 1 1/3 cup of wheat berries. Like I said, I'm using einkorn today. Soft white wheat would be great for these. If all you have on hand is hard white wheat, you can use them. Just have about 1/4 cup of milk on hand, just in case. I keep it on hand anyway, because different days, different humidities in my kitchen will, kind of decide whether I'm going to use it or not. All right, well, let's make pumpkin scones together today. I think you're going to be blown away at how quick and easy that this recipe is. All right, I need to jump in here real quick before we get started. You're going to notice I don't add any sweetener to mine, but in the recipe card, it has 2 tablespoons optional of honey. Of course, you can add as much as you want. I don't prefer it, but if you want a sweeter scone, be sure and add that 2 tablespoons of honey or maple syrup to your wet ingredients before you add it in to the flour. So we have our flour here. The reason I love to use einkorn or soft wheat for things like this is it meals so fine. It's like a pastry flour, and that really makes a difference with the texture. So I'm just going to add all of this flour to a large mixing bowl. And now we want to add a teaspoon of salt. Teaspoon salt. And a tablespoon of baking powder. So now you just want to mix all that together. The salt, the baking powder, and the flour. Making sure there's no like lumps of baking powder or clumps of salt or something like that. And that's pretty much it. Just get it all together. And now we're going to add 1/4 cup of olive oil right to this dry mixture. Now this is where you want to mix that in until it resembles like coarse crumbs. It doesn't take long with like soft wheat and einkorn to get those crumbs. Let's see if you can. There are like pieces of dough, kind of, that the flour has mixed with that oil to make like crumbs. And so that's what you're looking for. Hope you can see that good. It's crumbly. And that is exactly what you want. That gives it its flaky texture. So now in a separate little bowl, we're going to mix up our wet ingredients. That's half a cup of pumpkin puree. And don't add the milk to this yet, because we're going to gauge the texture of the dough before we add the rest of it. It's easy to add a little at a time. It's really hard to fix it if you get it way too wet, and then you're adding more flour and it just won't be right. So just put in the pumpkin and an egg. Then we're going to put some pumpkin spice, a couple of teaspoons. You can do more or less. I like a lot. And just give that a good mix. So now what I want you to do is to add this into this. We're leaving the milk until very last because I'm going to show you how you can kind of gauge that you've got the right dough. The reason this is so important is because einkorn absorbs liquids differently than hard white wheat and soft white wheat, and they're all different. And so it's really important to get a feel for what the dough should look like by adding your milk last a little at a time. So I'm not thinking this is going to be enough. It's just I want to make sure I don't add it all at one time and then it's a soupy mess instead of a biscuit dough. So we're going to add this in. We're just going to give it a stir to kind of incorporate that into the flour. The good thing about soft wheat and einkorn is they have like a lower gluten, and so you don't really have to worry as much about building gluten as quickly as you would if you use like hard white or hard red wheat. Or even kamut and spelt have a higher gluten. I mean, this is looking good, so I don't know. I may have surprised myself. I want you to see what's happening here. You see we're getting a dough. I'm going to use my hands now to kind of make... You really don't know the texture till you feel of it. So kind of get used to getting your hands into the dough so that you can kind of get a feel for it. This feels really good. I think I'm going to be able to do without the water. So keep that in mind. If you use soft white wheat or einkorn, you're probably not going to need the milk. I didn't mean to say water. The milk. It's perfect. This dough is absolutely perfect without any added, it's moist, workable, and that's exactly what we want. So we're going to proceed with getting this shaped and baked. So that was pretty quick. But just remember, if you use hard white wheat, you may need the 1/4 cup of milk to bring it together, because hard wheats are lower in moisture than soft wheats and like einkorn, and so they require just a little bit more liquid. But this is perfect without the milk. So if you do use einkorn, omit the milk, and I will make that a point in the printable recipe on the blog as well. So what I like to do is get a small piece of parchment paper and lay it inside a small pan, and then I'm just going to bring my dough over, and this dough is perfect. So if you want to use einkorn, you're going to get the perfect dough. Now I'm just going to sit that ball of dough right there. And what you want to do for scones is you want to just gently spread it out into like a circle. This is the perfect dough because it's just a tiny bit sticky, but not enough to actually stick to my hand. It's just so it's moist, but not too sticky, and it's not crumbly and dry either. So as you can see, I've got a pretty good circle here. give you an idea. So to score it, I just take one of these, but you can use a knife or, you know, whatever you have that you can cut through these. You want to cut it down the center all the way through, then cut it again to where you have 4 big pieces, and then we're going to do it again because you're going to get 8 pieces. Okay. So there's how it's going to look before we put it in the oven. And we're going to bake these for 12 to 15 minutes. I check them at 12. And then if they need to go a minute or two more, I'll let it. But no more than 15 minutes, depending on your oven. So let's get these in the oven. Alright, so as you can see, scones are actually pretty easy to make. They sound fancy, and you could get fancier. You can brush the tops with some cream, heavy cream. Before you bake them, you can make a pumpkin spiced icing to drizzle over the top. It's up to you. You can get it just as fancy as you want. But these are one of my favorite things to make. I have several varieties that I do. I like chocolate chips, jalapeno cheddar, cranberry orange, all kinds. But I'm going to give this a taste and I'll tell you what I think about it. Very good. Very, very good. I love them. Now, if you prefer them sweeter, you can add more honey or add the honey because I don't add it to mine. I don't like it a real sweet scone. But like I said before, you can add honey to this and get a sweeter scone if that's more in line with what you like. I personally like them to be just like the pumpkin spice, and the pumpkin is enough for me. And that way I can have them even with eggs in the morning, and it's not super sweet for breakfast. So, but anyways, let me know if you made scones. Look in the description box for the recipe and print that off. And please, please let me know if you have any recipe ideas that you want me to try. I have a list. I'm going to be making some tortillas. We're going to be making a pie crust. We're going to be making spelt, like a ancient wheat bread. And then we're going to make just a regular bread out of hard wheat. And so we got a lot to do, a lot to get to, and I hope that this is giving you a little bit of confidence to learn how to work with your fresh milled flour. All right, well, that's all I have for you. I will see you back here next week, same day, same time. We're going to make, next week, we're going to be making tortillas. So all you need is some wheat berries, olive oil, salt, baking powder, and water. I think that's it. I'll link that recipe down below so that you can be ready. And we're going to make those together, and they're super soft and they're super delicious and really quite easy to make. You may not, you may think that tortillas is one of the hard things. It's super easy to make, and I'm excited to share every part of that with you all next week. All right, y'all have a good one, and we'll see you soon.